Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
There's a group of people that they're like the working poor. I was one of those people, and I wanted them to do what I couldn't do. They'll often say, I can't do that, Debbie. No, I don't have any of that. And I'm like, oh, no, I didn't have any. I didn't have any of that either. This is what happens when you're pushed against the wall. I'm not going to push you to the wall. I'm going to show you, the soft way of getting here.
Today's love story belongs to Debbie Adams, originally from Upper Island Cove, Newfoundland. Imagine growing up in a small, remote community that lacks role models who match your expectations for your life. From early childhood, Debbie was the square peg, constantly trying to find a fit. Despite many setbacks and curveballs, she eventually learned how to open the doors that had been closed to her, and that's empowered her to help others do the same. This is the Canadian Love Map. Debbie, welcome to the Canadian Love Map.
I'm delighted to be here.
We tell stories about love of all kinds, whether it's intergenerational or romance. And a lot of the time we just tell stories about people who are putting love into the world. And I hope you don't mind I'm slotting you into that category.
I love it. I love it.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Right away, people can hear the lilt in your voice, I think, that gives you away as a Newfoundlander.
Mm-hmm.
Take us to the Rock and your beginnings, if you would. Tell us your story, your life story.
Oh, my goodness. I'm from Upper Island Cove, a small community about an hour from St. John's. 2,000 people grew up there. But I was born in Toronto. I always like to throw that in,
Really?
Yeah, because my parents went to Toronto to find work in the 60s, and me and my sister, we were born in Toronto.
And then you had the good sense to
When we were
hoof
two.
it back to the Rock.
And I don't really think they really made the move, it was, so went back, and then, I grew up in this lovely little community, 2,000 people, and left when I was 17.
What was it like living in that town?
There wasn't much there except for like the school, the bank, the library. Everybody we knew all of those people, like 2,000 people. You were probably related to 90% of them. So, it was safe and a great place for kids to be, right on the ocean. My father was like a guy with horses and pigs, or not pigs, but sheep. I don't know why I said pigs. We may have had a pig. But we had animals and chickens, and so it was that kind of lifestyle.
What were you like as a little girl?
We had a little bit of trauma in our family. My parents were in a car accident when they were 34 and 33. My mom and dad are only less than a year apart. And my mother had traumatic brain injury. So at the time, myself and my siblings were 13, 12, 11, 9, 8.
Wow.
I was the 12. So even like thinking back, I've been, mothering myself for a long time. It was difficult. My mother never did fully recover. She broke her neck. She was in a coma. It was very traumatic for the community because, that impacts the whole community. And so growing up is all seen through that lens for all of us. prior to that, my mother was, a pretty impressive lady, a beautiful woman. They danced a lot. We had babysitters. They went out, and people would describe my mother as paragon of motherhood. After that, we were all parenting ourselves.
Wow. And I guess what that teaches you as a child is that life is fragile and things can change on a dime.
It teaches you that when you don't really have the skills to appreciate that. I mean, I think we can say that now, and
Right.
it's like so relevant.
Yeah.
Back then, you're 12 and you've lost, your house is turned inside out. And then I left at 17, joined the army.
Okay, there's a surprise,
Right?
because I think it's safe to say that most people would hear the story to this point, and you're a small girl in a small town. You might think of traditional roles. You might think of traditional careers even, but the army. Where did that come from?
I don't really know where it came from. I do know I met a recruiting officer at a local fair once, and I was about 12, and, we had talked about that. I think now, with the benefit of hindsight, I can look back and see that there were these inflection points where you knew, like, I kind of wanted to get away from all of that, and this was way forward. We didn't have the means to be able to, like, school was not an option. I was, the first generation, like high school, and now university and all the stuff. And, the only one to finish high school. So it wasn't like, oh, finish high school and we'll be able to support you. We're self-parenting.
Right.
So it was like, where's the job going to be? And I just got onto that. And once I knew, once I talked to that guy and he said, in order to get into the military, you got to finish high school. That was it. Laser sharp focus on finishing high school.
There's the goal.
Yeah.
And so what did entering the army look like for you at that age?
It was like going to St. John's and meeting with the recruiting people. And I thought maybe because I was half decent at math, maybe admin or finance or something, very traditional for women, very traditional. We didn't see non-traditional women anywhere to give us examples of what we could be. So I said admin, finance. And he said, if you want to do those trades, and I understand how all this works now, but, back then I didn't, but there's a 2-year wait. But if you want to be a mechanic, you could go right away. I'm like,
Cool.
All right, let's be a mechanic.
I love it. I love your open spirit. We're doing this.
Well, if not this, what? It's like I was going. Like looking back, I was going.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what they would have suggested. Like I'm here.
So it was a path out.
Yes,
and you took it.
Yeah, but again, I'm reluctant to say I knew that's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of things in life, I was just doing that next, the next thing. It seemed like the right thing, and yeah.
And so you became a mechanic.
I did the first cohort of women to become journey mechanics, and I am quite proud of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely loved every minute of it.
Did you? Well, that was my next question. Was it just a job or was it something you came to love?
No, Nancy, it was definitely more than a job. Like the military itself was home. It was this welcoming place where you had people who were just like you that probably were, from the same kinds of background, looking to find that kind of connection and meaning. And yeah, it was the best place.
That's wonderful to hear because, there are a lot of women, of course, who have very different stories to tell about their time in the military.
Oh, yeah, I have those stories too. Like there are parallel stories.
Yeah. It all is true.
Yeah. Like we were recently part of the class action lawsuit for women. And we're talking 1980. It was 40 years ago. There was that story too. But the bigger picture of what it meant, it was extremely important.
That sense of community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And belonging. It was the belonging. The military was stability and safety and all of that stuff.
So you were sailing along on a calmer sea for a while until something interrupted your progress?
Oh, yeah, my heavens. I was in the military for 11 years, absolutely loved it. And after about probably 8.5 years, I always say that one of the good things to come out of the military, lots of good things, but I was taken out of my environment in Newfoundland and landed in 7 years in Saskatchewan, 2 years in Edmonton and Ottawa and Kitchener and all kinds of places. I met different people. Where I came from was not diverse. The military was very diverse, and I had this myriad of experiences that not everybody would get. It was phenomenal. I loved that I was a mechanic, and I did my early training in apprenticeship in Edmonton, then moved to Saskatoon as the first woman in Saskatoon. So that was a big deal.
You're a pioneer.
Yes, and I've not stopped pioneering. That's right.
We're going to talk about that.
When I was in Saskatchewan, my boss at the time had suggested maybe a better track was to become an officer. So maybe maybe change trades. And so I did. And I went to Ottawa. And in Ottawa, the plan was that, I was going to pursue some of this, maybe a little bit of university or whatever. But it was, in the 90s, the first Persian Gulf War was going on and, all kinds of stuff. And that year I was told I was going to be promoted, like fast-tracked in this new trade. I had tons of leadership potential. I would not have known what to call it at the time. But,
Yes.
I was good for morale and I'm assertive. So, I did extremely well in the trade.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all of this potential, and I was told I was going to be going to Germany. I can't say it too fast or I'll cry.
So there was a bright light on the horizon.
It was
you were going toward,
that year. Yes, you're going to be going to Germany with the Royal Canadian Regiment, and you're going to be promoted, and this is going to be a step up. And part of all of that process was medical, and I drove to my doctor's appointment, and I had to go back and get extra tests done for my vision, and they told me I was legally blind.
What? So
Right.
You knew that you had problems with your vision?
No.
Really?
No. I have a disease called retinitis pigmentosa, which takes away your peripheral vision, and it was hereditary or degenerative, or
You had just lived with it probably without knowing the difference.
I did not know I had it.
Right.
So I just lived through life, with my brand new car and my motorcycle and on the range on Friday doing my qualifications with the weapons and yada, yada. So I didn't really know the implications of this, but I knew, I walked away from there knowing I couldn't drive. So, it had to go through a process, and the process was it went for a review, and they came back and said, she can't fire a weapon, and universality of service, and you must be able to soldier, and so we need to get rid of her. I was like top of the merit board, and that was like important and relevant, and, in my 11th year, I was signed up for life, and then I'm gone.
Wow, no wonder it stirs emotion in you.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about the parallel between you and your mother and how your lives shifted on a dime.
Right. And now I struggled with being a disabled woman because of what disability meant in the family,
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be that.
Yeah. Whew, that's big.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in how, we are as humans so resilient, and we come through dark tunnels like that and are stronger for it and end up being able to help others because of what we went through.
Yes.
Not in spite of, but actually because of.
Yes.
So how is that your story? How do you fit into that narrative?
I don't think I could be even here telling this story, and I hope I never lose the emotion, because I can't trivialize that and say, oh, it was okay.
Right on.
No, it wasn't okay.
Right.
All of it wasn't okay, the way it was done and the impact. But without all of that, I wouldn't be me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I help people through from a lived experience. It got worse. You know, it wasn't, oh, there it is, one and done.
Mhm.
You know, that changed me.
Life likes to knock you down time after time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not quite yet. It's like, not quite yet. But, you know, I think what happens later, it certainly happened for me. I mean, I've been to university. I've got a business. I've written 4 books. I mean, I'm a different person. I hardly recognize myself. But I am ever so grateful for all of it, the package.
Mhm.
I'm also quite pissed off on occasion when it's like, I didn't want that package. You know?
Both things are true.
Yeah, at the same time.
Okay, so where did your life go from there?
I had a child. I got married. Then I got divorced.
Mhm.
And I'm 40 years old by this time and divorced. And, you know, I will mention, though, Nancy, that nowhere in there would you see me processing that trauma.
Mhm.
You know, I very quickly moved to the next thing. This was my pattern.
Suppress, bury it, move on.
And be remarkable,
Yes.
right? And be that little perfectionist who never brings any worry and, you know, don't ask for help. And,
Oh, you're telling my story.
yeah. So I did that. And then by the time I was 40, it was like, you know, the marriage had failed. My child is 9. We had just moved to Nova Scotia and I decided I'd go to university. So 40 years ago, I joined the military. 20 years ago, you know, I hit the wall and start this new journey. I had clinical depression at the time, so I took a semester off. Went back to Mount St. Vincent, finished my degree, graduated with distinction, got a little scholarship. Took me a long time, 5 years, and I'm applying for 3,000 jobs in Nova Scotia. Nobody would hire me.
Mm.
I had no network. I had zero network. Not the case today, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I know the right people, but at the time I didn't, and I didn't understand how it worked here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought with all of my experience, all my education, and all of my leadership, and who wouldn't want me? But they didn't want me. And I had barriers to employment because of the disability. Being legally blind comes with comorbidities like anxiety and depression. And so you're bringing all that with you, right?
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Can I say, though, that when you said the words, I have major depressive disorder, it went through my head. I left the conversation for just a moment because it went through my head, wow, one time that would have been considered a weakness. But when I hear you say it in this conversation, I think, what strength? Like that strength. Really. So I just wanted to just have a little aside and say, to me, when you said that, I was like, you go, girl. You're talking in a very frank way. And I think that's helpful to so many people. And that's what you are doing these days. You're helping so many people.
I am.
By being who you are and sharing the lessons that you've, come by pretty in a hard way.
In a hard way.
Yeah.
One time I was so pissed off, I wrote every politician a letter saying, I can't believe you don't want me. Like, I am a hard worker. I can't believe I did that now. But, and I'm getting wore down. I mean, I had in 08, my house on the market and foreclosure notice in the morning, sale in the afternoon. Like, I'm telling it all, sister. Mm. That was where I was. And I met somebody. My daughter had gone off to school. I went to Ontario to see if I could find work, connect with some of my people. And I met somebody and they said, have you thought about entrepreneurship? And my response was, what the bleep would I sell? For your benefit, I'll use bleep. Like, what do you see? And he said, all of the stuff you've done, Like, I may have only gone to law school for a year, but I did learn how to do contract law and tendering, and I'm a mechanic, for God's sake. And, I graduated from university with distinction. I know how to do shit.
Sometimes you have to see yourself through someone else's lens.
So I said, okay, let's try this. I started doing little stuff from home. Income tax, and I'd meet somebody who had a little business, and then the wife needed to know how to keep the books. I didn't really know, but I could learn. I had figured out how to learn, so I would learn it today, sell it tomorrow kind of thing. And I was doing that for a couple of years, and I went to, I wrote a paper in university called The Education of At-Risk Adults, because I recognized myself as different from the people in class. And we need a little more hand-holding. And I found in the apprenticeship model in mechanics that there was a more tender way of helping people. I did extremely well in mechanics, not because I had all this aptitude, but because I had phenomenal people who came alongside and said, I'm going to show you how to do that. Just do this little trick. And I thought they could do that with adults who decided to go back to school. So the women's worlds came to Canada. Somebody had heard about me. They invited me to go to Ottawa. They bought me a ticket, gave me meals, and I went to Ottawa and I talked about the education of at-risk adults. And there was a group there from the Labrador, and they said, they called me afterwards and said, could you write a grant application for us? We want to house incarcerated women. And I'm like, oh my God, I hate telling lies. I'm like, did I say something in that talk that made them believe I knew how to write a grant? Like, what? And I asked them, like, did I tell you I wrote grants? Like, please tell me I didn't.
They could tell you could figure it out fast, I bet.
They said, if you can tell a story like that, Debbie, you can write our story down on paper.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do this. I wrote that grant. They got that like 1.3 million renewable for 10 years or some such thing.
It's the art of persuasion.
That was it.
Right? Your storytelling.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I did that. And in the middle of that, the funder wanted them to know the logic model of change management. So I went to the library and got a book and I taught them. And I started to think, like, Debbie, maybe you can make a few dollars. So in 2015, I was tired of doing it at home. Nobody knew who I was. Just the community. I lived in Sackville. And I opened a storefront, put up my shingle. People can, training and development. Create a better life. That was my tagline. And the rest is history. 2018, I closed it down, took it online. Now I'm an adult educator. I've written 4 books, all about overcoming unconscious bias.
Let's talk about the intersection of purpose and entrepreneurship, purpose and business. I mean, is this all about business for you? There you go.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
I'll throw you that softball. I knew you did it out of the park.
No. I think this is where the military stuff came in handy because we were so purpose-driven, right?
Oh, that's really interesting.
Like nobody in the military joined in 1980 because of the money. Let me tell you that. Right. I was stationed in Edmonton for my first 2 years, and we were single. And in Edmonton at the time, that was the most expensive place to live in Canada. Yeah, so purpose. I was always purpose-driven, never about the money. I always wanted to get back to that service, but it was easy for me to say, I want to do this work because I don't want anybody else to ever have to go through it. When people say, I know I'm resilient. And I know I'm intuitive. I know all of that. But I would rather have any other affliction than resilience. You can't get resilience without a bunch of shit.
Yeah, that's it. The resilience is hard won. But yeah. I love what you're saying. And that's what I'm talking about, that intersection between purpose and business that is the sweet spot that really drives, I think, a successful business because you're not just about the money.
No.
You've got to make money, but that's okay. If you can make money doing something that you feel passionate about and helping other people, like that's what I mean by the sweet spot.
Right. How nice is that?
How does it feel?
How does it feel? It's beyond you. Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. Yeah, I'm 60 now. Best decade ever and dragging a lot of people. through that door. So this is my thing. I only teach 3 things: communication, and not like stage communication, but like clear articulation of what you're trying to say kind of thing. How to build a powerful network. And money mindset. We're going to create a decent life. We're going to bring everybody along with us. So all of the times when I was in a vacuum, when nobody put a hand out, they just watched me implode, and I'm not being that. I'm being the, let's open a door. When you've got to open a crack, stick your foot in it and wave them all through.
Now you're going to make me cry. That's a thing of beauty. Tell me what it looks like to pull people through that door, as you say.
When I was in Sackville and I got a little bit of traction in the community, I introduced the first Women's Day event. And Sackville is kind of a rurally kind of a feel, even though it's only right there. They didn't have a YMCA. They didn't have all of the stuff that the city has. And I'm like, you got to have a place where women can talk about their shit. So I had this Women's Day event, and I invited in some, phenomenal women, and we told our stuff. And it was hard stuff. And then this 100 women that attended were like, oh my God, they're talking about their stuff. But we're now like, middle class women. We're women who can tell our story and not feel threatened by you hearing it. And so they, it was the first time that was seen. So there's that. Now we're all going to be imperfect together. How do we move forward from here?
Yeah, the power of vulnerability.
Yeah. So it was that. And then I, along the way, I've won a few awards. I started writing down in little books to do workshops. I wanted to talk about money mindset. I studied for a year, Bob Proctor stuff about law of attraction, and I got fascinated with that stuff. But I wanted to bring it to the people who, there's a group of people that they're like the working poor. They don't engage with the system in terms of, any of the organizations that are interested in. So they do it out. Like I was one of those people, I was not going out to a organization in the community and telling them that I didn't have groceries. I was buying my child's lunches and then doing it out, So there was those people, and I wanted them to be vulnerable, to do what I couldn't do. So I started talking about stuff in my books and stuff, doing talks all over the place, all over the country, wherever I could. I went into communities and went to Digby and talked about it, went to Cape Breton, rural, my people. And along the way, I met kids who would come to Nova Scotia on full scholarship and, mess it up. And I'd been to law school. So I approached their parents and asked if I could connect them to my network, my powerful network. And I do that now, intentionally. And nobody will ever be in the state that I was in because they'll always have me to call. And I know people. So somebody will be able to help.
That's amazing. How does it feel to be in that position where you can truly help people in an extraordinarily meaningful way?
Oh my God, it's absolutely lovely because they'll often say, I can't do that, Debbie. You have that's, I don't have any of that. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't have any. I didn't have any of that either. This is what happens when you're pushed against the wall. I'm not going to push you to the wall. I'm going to show you, the soft way of getting here. It feels lovely. It's what I'm supposed to do. And so now I'm more of a existential type thinker. And that was what I was supposed to do. All of that. I could not, absent the military treatment at the end of it. I love my military service, love it. Absent that, the law school experience, the visual impairment, there is no me making an impact, and I love it. Last year I got a little award, youth mentor in Newfoundland, youth mentor. It's a little lemonade award. It's one of my, I love it. It's like my academy. I want to thank the academy.
Making lemonade out of lemons.
Right. That's what they stand for.
You're the lemonade lady.
I think that the door is open to a lot of opportunity for certain people. And Nobody wants to talk about that. And I want to tell people that to raise awareness about the privilege that they have to walk through a door and make us aware of how hard it is for us to push that door open. People are coming alongside and they're like, I'll help you. People want to help. They just didn't know we had this problem with this door. So they want us in the room. They just don't know what we need. So I want to be that person. Talks about that gap.
All right. You said you don't want awards, but if you were able to write a script for what people would say about you when you're gone, what would it be?
Odessa, she's a hard case. She could swear like a trooper.
How about she changed a lot of lives?
I don't really care if they say that. And they probably will, but they don't need to say anything about me. They just need to go on about doing whatever they want.
Oh my gosh. Best answer ever. It's not about performance. It's about contribution. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's have a good cry now. Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.